take the blue pill, the story ends. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland.
All my fear, all my shyness, gone.
All I'm offering is the truth.
I wasn't high, wasn't wired. I knew what I needed to do and how to do it.
I'm Stephen Walker, and welcome to the Unfair Podcast, where we break down the latest headlines and products in the world of biohacking. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Guillaume.
Yes, indeed. Super happy to be joining the first ever episode of the Unfair Podcast. Isn't that
It's
right,
the very
Stephen?
first one. It feels great.
Yeah.
Gee, you mentioned you had a high flow day. What would you attribute that to? Was it sleep, new supplements?
I did have a really good day, actually, Stephen. So I woke up like every other day, glass of water, popped an Alcar, and then had some filter coffee, got pretty much nicely revved up, finished my 16-hour fast cycle, and it just connected today. I think there are days like this, and I don't really think that there's a pill or a mechanism to ensure that you're always in the flow. I think you do everything that you can to set yourself up for the flow, and then it happens. And I think it's related to tasks. It's related to your mood, the weather, how people are reacting to the work you're doing. If you're working with other people, there's all kinds of little friction points, and today was good.
I have to say, I struggled with the flow today. We'll talk about this more a little bit later in the episode when we get into the mag team. The morning was super hazy for me.
Yeah, Mag-Teen is definitely something to talk about.
You ready? Let's get into the headlines this week.
Yeah, so Biohackers on Netflix, super cool stuff. I think as a biohacker to see that there's finally a series in the mainstream. When something is on Netflix, no matter how you look at it, it means it has some relevance. There's not a lot of stuff, no matter how you look at it being like a good series or a good piece of content or not, it makes it there, it has relevance. So for me as a biohacker, super exciting. But I watched the whole thing. For one reason, I'm a serial Netflix watcher. So when I get into something, I finish it. It's just, I don't know. I can't just take something for 10 minutes and just be like, nah, okay, I'm out. I just got to go all the way through.
Why fight human nature?
I don't know. Is it human nature?
It's totally human nature. We absolutely hate unfinished endings. And the Netflix model is basically to hook you and keep you going.
I think that's why we're friends, Stephen, because I feel like I learn something every time I talk, to be honest.
We're a good match.
Human nature, guys. Happening now on the Unfair Podcast.
One of the most interesting aspects is that Netflix renewed it in the same month that it debuted. And I haven't paid close attention to how Netflix does this normally, but it feels like it was a pretty fast decision to renew it. So I assume there must be a lot of people out there watching it. I personally haven't finished the first episode. Based on your binge watching of the first season, I feel like I have to now.
Just going back to that real quick, I binge watched it. I can tell you about the plot as a creative, as a video guy. It's nothing groundbreaking. Yeah. So it's actually completely simple. I don't think there's any really big twists and turns or things that happen in there that are really worthwhile, to be really honest, from a plot perspective. But it's well produced. I think the biggest issue here, and which is why I would even have a hard time to rate this, is it just repeats a lot of cliches for the biohacking world. It's like a caricature of all the fringe behavior that's ever happened through time in biohacking. Like everything you've seen on Vice, these guys who put magnets under their fingers, NFC implants, do-it-yourself, CRISPR, all that stuff, it's all just jam-packed in there. And that's entertaining, especially, I guess, for people who don't know about biohacking, because it's weird. Like, why is that guy so freaky? And this is a weird show, interesting, entertaining. But I think when you're into biohacking or into self-optimization, it's just so fast to recognize how like ridiculous this stuff is, really. So for me, as somebody who's also super passionate about biohacking as self-optimization, actually, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Stephen, but also at Unfair, we're really passionate about bringing biohacking to the truth that it really is, which is self-optimization.
Absolutely.
You sure as hell don't need a computer in your hand to benefit from biohacking. You don't need any of this funky fringe behavior. We talk about this all the time. Coffee as being a biohack, as being something that enhances your performance, and people are into this day in, day out in the morning. So there's such a low threshold of entry into biohacking that all this fringe behavior stuff just sets it into a really dark corner that's so inaccessible and weird and bizarre. On that line, I think gets a thumbs up from me because it's about biohacking. It's on Netflix. It's in some ways entertaining as well. It's cool German production, but I don't want to go into ratings because if I do that, I'll probably rate it pretty badly because of the topic. But
no, it's understandable. There's a movie called Hackers from the 90s. I think it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Does it portray hacking in any sort of meaningful or accurate light? Absolutely not. But it's pure entertainment and it's fun and it's a time capsule from the 90s. And so I think what you're saying about the Biohackers show sounds like Netflix really hit the right chord with being entertaining, with bringing biohacking into the zeitgeist. I think the question is it now part of society or is it just a flash in the zeitgeist like Tiger King?
If biohacking gets to be Tiger King, I think that would be a massive victory for biohacking, right? I think no matter how we look at Tiger King, it was a cultural phenomenon, even if it's short-lived.
You're hoping that it is more than just a flash in the pan, but if it can reach the audience that Tiger King reached, that it would be good for the biohacking movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And to all biohackers out there, I mean, guys, it's on Netflix. The shit's getting real. We're in the limelight, but now it's up to us to show the world what biohacking really is about and what it is not about.
Let's get to the other big headline this week. That is Amazon is the next of the big four, being Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon, getting into wearables with their new device called Halo. Microsoft might want to come at them. Who knows? It's a fitness band that scans your voice for stress. I assume it's using some of the Alexa technology. Plus, it does all the things that you would expect from a Fitbit clone. What do you think about this, G? Is it here to stay or is it the next new wearable?
What I'm loving about this first podcast is that I feel like a guest of honor.
Dude, you are a guest of honor.
I'd love to know what you feel about this, actually, because you dug this. I have my opinions, and I'm super happy to share them, but I would love to know what your take on this is.
Absolutely. Amazon is really great at spinning up new ideas. They have a huge PR machine. They have some of the best talent in the world, but most of them don't stick. And you can see them launching all kinds of ideas. They had a video camera that you could put in your closet and it would scan your body and it would scan all your outfits and it would help you choose what to wear that day. It never made the mainstream, even though it was a lot of cool tech that could have gone somewhere. They shuttered that before it even reached a mass audience. I was looking at that article. I was looking at the screens in that app, and a lot of it looks like demo. It doesn't look like real functioning product. It looks like very early PR behind this. And so I think it's a cool idea, but I think it's not going to stick.
Why so late to the party and why so lame? Amazon has got the big bucks. And right now, what we're getting is something that looks like an ancient model of Fitbit. Like it's not sleek. It's not even attractive. It just looks like a strap of Velcro. And it listens to your tone of voice. I mean, cool. Maybe that's good to figure out how you sound to others. But is this really accurate? Is this really a thing to quantify? Is it really worth it? Isn't it also a little bit creepy that your wrist is just like evaluating your tone?
It probably is a little bit creepy.
It is. But I mean, then again, everything listens to your voice. So I don't know. But I'm not seeing the edge. I just see a giant that's infiltrating the market with these totally semi-efforts. And it got a super low price point, I guess, to encourage product adoption. But it really feels like it's relying on its access to the audience as Amazon and its massive ability to maybe scale with partners and do stuff. But there's just nothing there. Let's even just break down the features. You have a membership. Okay, fair enough. Like almost everything's got a membership. It's screen-free for fewer distractions. I'm not too sure it's screen-free for fewer distractions. I think it's screen-free so it can stay $64.
I think you're absolutely right there.
But you know what I'm saying? And then body composition, it measures your body fat percentage. Pretty sure it doesn't. It's probably just electrical impulses at best if you have that. And I think that's not a super accurate indicator. Activity tracking, sleep, like bravo. So it's kind of a throwback to Fitbit. And how ugly is that thing? Can we talk about that for 2 more seconds? Even just like the Amazon page where you can check this out. Did you have a look at this?
I'm pulling it up now. Ooh, this is great. So it comes in, for everyone who can't see our screens, it comes in 3 colors, black and onyx, blush and rose gold for the ladies, and winter and silver for the old people out there. And it comes in 3 sizes.
Exactly. And look also the materials around it. You have these weird drawings. It's like a throwback to bad ages of the past, like these body drawings and all that stuff. Come on, guys. I want to see it like a gazillion-dollar company pull up some good shit, like the Amazon Aura, but like better.
I haven't really talked about this before, but while I was at Amazon, there was a project where they were using the Alexa technology to analyze the voice for stress. And the idea was that they would put an Alexa in every hospital and every doctor's office. And as you were talking to your doctor, they could analyze your voice over time and possibly detect if there was something up. This seems like a nice iteration towards that, but frankly, I don't know how accurate that technology really is. It seems like a cool idea, but something out of Star Wars or Star Trek that you have a robot medical doctor that you can talk to that's super smart. But exactly what you said, the execution seems like the B Squad, even for Amazon.
The B Squad, I like that. So, Stephen, thumbs up or thumbs down?
I'm going to give it a thumbs down. I think it's super late. Fitbit as a company is struggling. They're being bought by Google. It's really unclear how Google is going to leverage Fitbit in the future. But the only company out there that seems to be making any money off of a wearable is Apple with the Apple Watch.
Do you think that this could be a little move from Amazon to maybe set itself up with its own fitness app? Do you think it could be like an analog to digital kind of strategy here?
Absolutely could be. I think it's a really great way to combine your health data with your shopping data. So I see the next step being, here's some good snacks you can buy. Here's some protein you can buy. Everything at Amazon is really about making another e-commerce sale. I see if they keep this around, that's where it's going.
Makes sense. Data leads the way. Yeah, double thumbs down, guys. Please, Amazon, if you're listening, and I know you're probably not because we're a blip on the radar now, but come on, guys, you could do better.
I heard Jeff listens to this podcast every morning, actually.
One day.
Moving on to our favorite product this week, Nebula. It's not necessarily new. I looked this up a little bit earlier today. They've been around for a couple of years. They launched this product earlier in the year, but what I would say is it's a game changer in the world of DNA testing. Nebula is offering their 30x DNA sequencing at the $299 price point, which I think is half of the cost of anyone else doing this. So it's the lowest cost DNA sequencing, and it's the most complete on the market today.
I think super exciting. So I'm just going to burst out with information here because, well, I bought it. So the pair here is going to test it, starting with me. And why is this even on our radar? Why is it exciting? I mean, most DNA tests out there only decode about 0.02% of your DNA. That's not very much. So when we talk about whole genome sequencing, that's 100% of your DNA. So that's about 10,000 times more data than run-of-the-mill DNA tests. That's a breakthrough. And that's incredible because it is the 30x whole genome sequencing. And what does that mean? That's also a really good question. 30x whole genome sequencing. Basically, it's just the gold standard for genetic testing. So most tests out there, you can think about notable ones like 23andMe or Ancestry DNA. They read your DNA at about 600,000 positions. So that's roughly that 0.02% analysis. And then the whole genome sequencing reads at over 6 billion positions in your genome. So that's the 100% mark. And that's what they call 30x coverage. And it's just more data means more accuracy because every single bit of your DNA is basically processed on average 30 times. So hence that 30x denomination that they give. So more data, more accuracy, more information, more results. And really, that's as good as it gets. I mean, once you have your full DNA mapped out, that's it. That's a blueprint of who you are. And I just think this is really cool. That was a dream at that price point a few years ago, and now it's reality. And it's like life is science fiction. So I'm super stoked about this. We're going to give it a crack. We're going to run my DNA through their machines, their reports, through externals as well, and report back to you guys how that went.
I know. I noticed two things when I was doing some research on this. I was trying to find the actual difference between 23andMe and Nebula, mostly because I have 23andMe. And what's really interesting is 23andMe has a before you buy FAQ, and they go into the difference between genotyping and sequencing. And they actually really badmouth the sequencing approach, basically saying it's super expensive and it's not really accessible. And if you can get access to it, it's not going to be great. And so it looks like 23andMe hasn't even caught up to the fact that the market has really moved forward and leapfrogged their genotyping approach that they use.
Potentially both sides have a benefit, but it can also be a layer of marketing speech to still be relevant. So I think as we see more and more of this whole genome sequencing, I would suspect that 23andMe will eventually reverse that position and offer a superior premium product.
I imagine. I actually uploaded my 23andMe data onto the Nebula site. They offer this for free, which is, I think, super cool. If you're on the fence and you've already done a DNA test, you can kick the tires a little bit. I noticed that they have the test, which is $2.99, and then they have the platform subscription. Did you buy the lifetime access?
I sure did. And that came out to quite a bit cheaper.
I was doing the math on it. Basically, if you want to have access to the platform for 2 years, it's more expensive than just buying the lifetime access. We're sort of betting on the fact that Nebula will be around for many more years to come.
And I'm betting that also on my experience with 23andMe. So I've been within their system and getting reports and all that stuff for the greater part of 3 years. So yeah, that's also the decision process for me.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. I think I did mine in 2013. It was the last wave before there was some US regulation that limited the amount of data they could provide to you. And so I'm grandfathered into some of the older data analysis. But I think the big value for me has always been to export that data and bring it elsewhere.
Yeah. And what's also interesting maybe for our German listeners is that I didn't have any pushback from the company itself to ship the full genome sequencing package to Germany. And also me being able to ship it back. I think 23andMe got slapped with some German regulatory mumbo jumbo, and they can't get you their full service basically in Germany. We've got to dig into this actually, Stephen. So maybe this is a takeaway for us also for the audience, because there seems to be in Germany a little bit of a sticky tape for genetic analyses that have to do with health and announcing maybe some predispositions or health issues you could have. It seems like this is a big boo-boo in Germany, and 23andMe struggles with this. But right now, Nebula doesn't. So all you German people, you want to get super crazy accurate genetic information and you want to get those predispositions analyzed and all that stuff, maybe consider Nebula Genomics. And disclaimer, we're making zero money with Nebula Genomics, like zero. I literally spent my hard-earned cash on it myself. Everything we talk about here, at least at this time, is completely not sponsored. There's no deals. There's nothing going on.
That's
here.
A great point, that we're actually just super excited about this product, and it's not because we're getting kickbacks or being paid to say any of this stuff. I don't want to name drop too much. We happen to know the CEO of a German company that does blood tests and DNA tests. Perhaps in a future episode, we can have him come on and we can dig a bit more into why Germany has a bit more regulation around DNA sequencing than, say, North America.
100%.
Cool.
Let's talk about your drugs, Stephen.
A couple months ago, I ordered a number of Russian supplements. Pharmaceuticals is actually probably more accurate, and had them delivered. And I wrapped a 2-week Noopept experiment last week, and I'll be publishing the results on the Unfair blog. For those that don't know, Noopept is a Russian derivative of paracetam that has supposedly great benefits for mid to long-term memory recovery. It's often prescribed in Russia to patients that have Alzheimer's, as well as people that have experienced some sort of brain trauma. I don't have Alzheimer's, nor any disclosed brain trauma, but I found the 2-week experiment to be pretty interesting. To give you a little bit of an overview, in the last 2 weeks, not only have I been working on Unfair, but I've been consulting with another company. So I have a high demanding day that usually requires 10 to 12 hours of being on. And I have a pretty dialed in supplement regimen. It was a little bit of a risk taking on Noopept and seeing how it would work. The first couple of days were the most noticeably different, where I would go for my morning run, I'd be listening to music, and I would have these flashes of memories connecting back to people that I haven't thought about or spoken to in 5, 10, 15 years. And I could really feel it working its way through older memories and just refreshing my memory archives. Now, after the first 3 days, this started to disappear. One of the more interesting things about Noopept that you will find when researching it and digging into the Reddit community or blogs in general, some people have what they claim to be short-term memory issues. I have to admit that I had some short-term memory issues while taking it. Now, I don't know, does it cause memory issues, or is your brain just working so well on other areas and you're so focused that you just aren't paying attention locally? I don't know.
Yeah, I've definitely read about this. So I'll tell you what I think. I'm too chicken shit to try Noopept, so it's super great that you tried it. And I think it's super interesting that you've noted everything down. Hell, I'm looking forward to that article myself. But it does seem like some people talk about one of the common sort of side effects is this negative effect on memory, which is super interesting because I think theoretically Noopept, it should be conducive to memory processes. So very interesting there. I think it'd be super cool if you could detail that more into the blog, because that seems fundamental. So we talk about Noopept being a memory recall agent, something that really works well with memory, but then there's this offset in another area of memory, or a complete offset, as some people seem to report on Reddit.
There was one moment where there was a vocabulary word that I had a hard time remembering, and it felt like there was a blocker reaching it. However, for the most part, in all of the conversations, my verbal acuity was super strong. My vocabulary was great. I almost wonder if what it does is it brings more awareness to potential short-term memory issues, and that's why you think that it's causing it. It's unclear. And even in my data, it wasn't enough to really show that there was a direct link. I'm forgetful. The other issue I had was that I misplaced my AirPods, which I've certainly done before. I'm actually on my fourth set because I misplaced the 3 previous ones. Now I didn't have to buy another set. I found them. They were in my house. It's hard to say whether or not this is an actual issue, but what I will say is that I was much more aware of any short-term memory issues that I had during the 2 weeks that I was taking it.
Super interesting. Let's talk about 2 hairy beasts that are associated to Noopept supplementation. So some people talk a lot about the anxiolytic effect, so like the anti-anxiety function of Noopept. Did you experience this taking Noopept?
You know what I have to say? Yes and no. I normally take aniracetam, and aniracetam is well known for having those same properties. And compared to the 2, aniracetam wins. What I can say about Noopept is that during difficult conversations, I found myself being very calm and still being able to be very fluid and separate what were my emotions in those difficult meetings versus the emotions of the other party, which could be a property of it. It's hard to say. Definitely made the anxiety much lower because I was able to process what was happening in that moment in a much better way.
That's super interesting. It seems like there's a subset of Noopept users that report increased anxiety. And it's so fascinating because the literature doesn't really stack up to this. And there's a theory running around that it's a form of relaxation-induced anxiety. So in other words, it's an excess of neurophysiological relaxation that you get uncomfortable with. It interferes with your cognitive performance, and then you get anxious. And I think I've experienced this before with less scrupulous supplements or pharmaceuticals. Does that make sense? Did you feel like you also had a little bit of increased anxiety, or that there was an effect on relaxation or the way that you could focus?
I think that makes sense. I also have read that. I didn't have anxiety one way or the other, an increase or a decrease. I wasn't actually tracking that, but because I was tracking pretty closely what were the feelings and things that I was thinking pretty closely, that would have come up. What I can say is with L-theanine, for example, after taking that by itself in higher doses, I definitely get that backlash anxiety, and there was none of that from the Noopept itself.
Super cool. Okay, so there's another thing that I would love to address, and it's the almighty brain fog. Increase or decrease. And for everybody out there, I don't know what our position is at Unfair for brain fog. Maybe, Stephen, you want to throw in 2
I
cents?
think brain fog is bullshit, personally. Talking about that, the symptoms that often get lumped into brain fog, I would say I probably have a better system for combating them, which is getting plenty of sleep, staying hydrated, exercise in the morning, and actually working on things that you like working on. I think once you've done that and you add Noopept to the mix, it's very different than if you take all of those things away. Perhaps Noopept would help with brain fog, but I can't really comment on that.
So there's people that are commenting online that their mental clarity actually plummeted on Noopept, or that they felt spaced out, or that they were a little bit more disorganized or in haze than usual. Did you get any of that notably from being on Noopept?
Absolutely not.
So you didn't get any of this hazy feeling, spaced out, disorganized, disassociation, frustrations, nothing of this.
And actually, I was massively productive the first couple of days that I was taking it. And then this probably equalized a little bit. And the first week I did a smaller dose. So I was doing 10 milligrams in the morning, 10 milligrams at lunch. The prescription dose is 50 milligrams, but I wanted to ease into it and make sure that there wasn't any adverse reaction. In week 2, I moved up to the 50 milligrams and I could feel the boost the first couple of days after that. And then it sort of normalized. So I think that there is a period of time where your body is reacting and normalizing against the substances. All of our physiology is so different. I could see that some people perhaps have that issue with Noopept, but I personally didn't. I was just operating on a normal level, plus a little bit better when it comes to working memory. I honestly can't say that remembering a conversation from 10 years ago helped me at all on a day-to-day basis, but it was nice connecting back to some of those older memories.
Fascinating. So everybody, that blog article is what, Stephen, a week or 2 away? Something
It'll
like
be
this?
on the blog in the next week.
Also on the topic of experimenting, I think we have something up our sleeves, right?
Yeah, we
Stephen?
do. After the Noopept experiment concluded, I actually jumped in to a Magnesium L-Threonate experiment, which I'll be taking for the next 2 weeks. And the form that I purchased is Magmine from Yarrow Formulas, which is just basically Magtine. I believe Magtine is actually the version of Magnesium L-Threonate that's in most supplements.
I'm also participating in this experiment. Truth be told, I've been taking Magtine on and off, been toying around with it for the greater part of 3 or 4 weeks. And I'll be taking it on for the next 2 weeks constantly at the prescribed dosage. So being 3 capsules per day, 1 daytime, 2 nighttime. The reason why I've been on and off is just because I have not felt really great while taking it. One of the things that happened, and it was a 1-to-1 correlation, as soon as I started taking it, I started getting this crazy right eye twitch all the time. And it lasted while I was taking it constantly. And it would be like 75% of the whole day would have that eye twitch. So it drove me a little bit crazy. And I don't know if this is due to anything else, but all things being equal and the stacks being equal and going through the same work days and flows, I felt a little more sluggish when I was taking Magtine consistently. It didn't get me feeling sharp or get me to feel like regular magnesium. So I'm a long-term user of magnesium bisglycinate. I think it's great stuff. I've got plenty of fasciculations and spasms. I've had that for a very long time, and that form of magnesium really curbs it. And it curbs my anxiety, and it definitely gives me better sleep. And I'm not seeing that with the current interactions with Magtine. But we're going to give it a full go, and we're going to report back. I think we have also an experiment format, right, Stephen? We have a way to document this and to make this valuable.
For sure. So each day, I'm same with the Noopept, I'm logging my intake. I have a normal routine, but I'm also tracking a number of variables from if my diet is veering off at all, if the sleep was off at all. So that way it tries to normalize. It's a small sample size, so it's hard to really say how accurate or scientific it really is, but at least it brings some more credibility to the data that we're reporting out. I take a magnesium blend every night, not a plug for the company, but it's from AAVA Labs called Fullnesium. And it's a blend that has magnesium oxide, bisglycinate, citrate, malate, and taurate. I don't know if it's necessary to have that entire blend there, but I found that I really like that blend and I have incredible deep sleep. So I was actually able to double my deep sleep on average between magnesium and killing all blue light before bed, which is massive. It's great for your body repairing. It's great for longevity. It's great for memory. But you really can't go wrong. Your immune system improves. What I have to say about the threonate or the magtine, I really struggle with it. I have felt a little off the last few days. I feel a little dull to anxious. I actually popped on Reddit and asked the community to see if anyone else was feeling that way. One person said they never felt fuzzy, but they started feeling paranoid. The second person said specifically to that brand that they were having problems with it. So if they took it before bedtime, their mind would be racing. And if they took it when they woke up, they would feel sluggish. I wonder if it's the brand and the sourcing of how, I don't know, they're assembling the supplement versus the actual threonate. But I think I will try to stick out the second half of the experiment unless it gets a lot worse.
What's super interesting here is that it is a magnesium form that's designed to cross the blood-brain barrier. And most magnesium doesn't do that. So maybe there's a bit that goes through. Full disclaimer here, I'm not a scientist. I'm not that deep yet into the magtine research as well. But there's one thing that's super clear. It is designed to cross the blood-brain barrier like no other magnesium supplement does. So I think it's safe to say that we're going to experience different things from magnesium bisglycinate or carbonate or oxide or whatever it is. I'm also a little suspicious. Based on early experience, I'm not too sure how cool it is to have magnesium straight into your brain. But yeah, more on that next time when we follow up with the magtine research. But we were just talking about how you were cutting out blue light, Stephen, and your screen is completely red at night. I have been with you working on some stuff, and your computer screen will be blood red, like it's just been painted over. So how do you do this, and how do you manage to cut down your blue lights?
On the desktop, I use an app called F.lux, which is a free app. It's been around for years. And I have some custom settings so that after sunset, it's the most extreme setting that you can use. Now, being a designer by trade in my background, I actually found this really hard to use at first because it makes everything look like shit. However, with the outcomes that I was seeing, I've never been able to go back. And I get a little anxious whenever I accidentally flick it and go back to the normal settings in the evening.
We also discovered you can do something similar with your phone. I'm 100% the person that can't let go of the phone in bed. Like I've got to catch up on a little Medium article. I've got to do a bit of reading, and I just end up doing it on my phone. And I've been working with this night shift technology from Apple that gives it a bit more of an orange hue. But looking at what you were doing with your computer, going really red light, turns out you can't really do that with an app. Like there isn't a product you can download for the iPhone, at least so far, but you can actually do it within the system. So to everybody out there that's interested in cutting down blue light emission, especially at night with your phone, but you still want to catch up on some information, maybe do a bit of reading, it's super simple. You go in your general settings, you go into accessibility. There's an area called display and text size. If you tap on this, you can scroll down a little bit. There's something called color filters. You tap on that, you activate it. You tap on color tint and you set the intensity and the hue all the way to the right. It will make your screen blood red, pure red light. It's cool looking, to be honest, a little bit weird. It's also going to screw up a bunch of your app icons and blow out a bunch of colors. So this is not really for, you having an aesthetic experience, but it is cutting down massively the amount of blue light coming out from your screen. So great for late night reading in your bed. So
this is a super cool hack. I'm pumped to start using this. I actually stopped using my phone in bed because of the fact that I couldn't shift the light far enough away from blue light at night.
Yeah. And guys, it's all about the small things. We're going to try to bring you guys all kinds of little tips and hacks and things that really work for us. We think sharing is caring when it comes to biohacking. So we'd love to also hear from you guys. How could people reach us with podcast ideas, questions, comments?
Anyone listening can reach us at podcast@unfair.com. biohackers.ltd. And that will go straight into our podcast inbox.
Guys, reach out to us. It'd be so interesting to know what you would like us to talk about. We're super happy to take on questions as well about unfair, about our ideology of biohacking, about the world, about what you had for breakfast. Super happy to talk.
Before we sign off, what do you think is going to happen in the world of biohacking in the next year or two? I know me personally, with the movement of Amazon into wearables with the Halo, I think it's only a matter of time before Amazon gets into supplements. Probably something basic based on the Halo. I would say a multivitamin. Why this makes sense. They're spending a lot of time and money on health-related products, and having a multivitamin only makes sense. They can just add that on, and it's a cheap product for them to start selling.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I completely agree. I can close my eyes and see it. Amazon Basics, their Basics line, but for supplements. And then you get your B complex, your zinc, your vitamin D3 at a fraction that's a bit lower than the other retailers on there. 100% will happen. I have to back up that prediction. The prediction of my own. So based on what we discussed, Nebula Genomics, 30x whole genome sequencing, and also 23andMe's position against that and using a bit of a different technology, I will predict that you will see 23andMe shift over to whole genome sequencing within the coming year. I think it's inevitable. It is a more comprehensive technology. It's a more premium offering. And I would suspect that they're going to shift there too.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, making it to the end. G, what do you have to say to our listeners?
Guys, stay tuned. There's so much more to come. We're just revving this machine up. Shoot us your questions. And most of all, keep living an unfair life.
See you next time.